So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. iPhone SE 2020, the second gen. Isn't that Apple logo just so clean, not having the iPhone printed on the back anymore? It's just a clean looking Apple iPhone. Now, I'm gonna give you some subjective thoughts on this phone so far after using it for a while. I even got some photo samples, video samples on it already. The body of this phone. The first thing I felt, and you have to keep in mind, I'm coming from the perspective of an iPhone 11, an iPhone 11 Pro Max, an iPhone 11 Pro. Some of you aren't, but if you've had any of the newer iPhones, going to this is like going to a super thin and light device. And that's why it still feels SE in 2020, because all the other current iPhones in the lineup just don't have this featherweight feel anymore. And yes, the smaller SE from the past is lighter and more featherweight than this, but this phone still has that feel like an SE if you used anything bigger than the iPhone 8. Now, the second thing I've been thinking about is, do I appreciate having Touch ID again? And in some cases, yes, in some cases, no. The gripes are pretty much the same about Touch ID as the past. Sometimes you have gloves on, you have to take them off to go ahead and unlock, or sometimes your fingers are greasy, you don't want to put your finger on the home button. And authenticating with bank apps and stuff, I just prefer Face ID to this home button, but it's still pretty convenient and it works as well as Face ID in most regards in terms of speed, unlocking, and it's even a little more convenient because you don't have to look at the phone to unlock it. You can unlock it upside down and it's going to unlock because it's a physical button. Now, I'm putting myself in the shoes of somebody who has an iPhone 7. This is not going to feel really different. Same goes for an iPhone 8. I haven't been feeling a big difference in these home buttons. It's about the same. However, if you're coming from something older, like a 6S, an SE, one of those older iPhones, they got more of a clicky mechanism. So this is capacitive, just like the iPhone 7. So it's going to feel a little bit updated for you there. Now, also talking about the thinness. This thing is so thin, in fact, that you definitely want to get a case if you want some more grippiness, because I found this thinness also makes it quite slippery. I've actually dropped this a couple times already. I'm lucky it's not messed up. I do have some hairline scratches on it already, and I've only had it 4 days though. I have some screen protectors coming soon. Now, next up is the screen. Now, True Tone makes the screen better. Just like the iPhone 8, True Tone definitely makes it better. And now when you buy this phone, you automatically get dark mode because it shipped with iOS 13. So the screen experience from a software standpoint is better. However, this Retina display takes you all the way back to iPhone 6 days. It really does feel that way. However, the screen itself is definitely better calibrated than before. So I've been just finding that the color representation is very accurate. That's about it. It's pretty plain. It's not overly saturated, nothing like that. But I think for an everyone iPhone at $399, nobody's going to give a crap about that. They're just going to really like this phone overall for the price. Now, if we go to the battery, I do have to talk about my disappointments here, because so far when I'm using this phone with the SIM card in, LTE running, this thing, I got to charge it midway through the day. This phone is not going to be a all day phone for a heavy user, because I'm a heavy user, but I do think this phone will get through the day for an average user. It gets like 4 to 5 hours screen time. So that is plenty enough for somebody who's not on their phone all day. So if you're not on your phone a lot, I do think this will make it the day. But there's no way this phone is going into the second day unless you don't use your phone like at all. Like you just let it sit there and don't touch it. Like that's the only way it's going to go on the second day. But if you use it like any other person, normally throughout the day on social media, doing some YouTube, couple of games maybe, you're going to either be around dead towards the nighttime and definitely have to charge. If you're a heavy user, you're gaming and stuff, this is going to die in 3 or 4 hours. My feeling so far on charging, I like that it fast charges. However, I do think that fast charging it too much will hurt the battery capacity. But it does come with a smaller charger, but it does charge very quick if you do use a bigger charger. I've also been feeling that the speed is just amazing on this phone. Having the A13 in here on this small display, it just feels like you're holding a little pocket rocket in your hand. However, it doesn't have that same unique feeling as the smaller SE because it's just a little bit bigger. I mean, the body is pretty similar to even like an iPhone 11 Pro, but just with thicker bezels. It's not that much smaller than that, but it is a lot thinner and lighter than that. So that makes it feel less weight. But the speed is ridiculous. I mean, this thing, you've been seeing in the videos and my speed test how quick this thing opens up applications. And how fast it does on benchmarks. I mean, this is beating almost every Android phone on the market that's over $1,000 in benchmarks and in performance. That's crazy. However, there's no promotion here and there's no extra smooth display. Doesn't really matter at this price. I don't even care about that. And my phone calls have been a little bit reduced from like iPhone 11, 11 Pro Max. And that's just because the audio on this phone is not as loud. It's just not. So speakerphone I use a lot, not as loud on this phone. Battery does drain more in phone calls and FaceTime calls on this phone because the cell is just smaller. So battery is the big con I'm seeing so far. The speakers, my feeling so far on these speakers, they're okay. They're dual speakers. That's good. They're stereo, but they're nothing impressive. They're not overly loud, and they're just okay. They're passable speakers on this phone. So yeah, we'll talk more about that. I'm actually gonna show in the full review a audio sample of these speakers and how they can be covered and what they sound like, things like that. But I'm not overly impressed. They're pretty similar to the iPhone 7 and 8. And the single camera, this camera, how good is this camera? Well, let me tell you, this camera is really good. It's actually pretty similar to the iPhone 8's camera, but with new processor performance that allows it to do some HDR stuff. It also has the more updated software look from the newer iPhone. So if I put the iPhone 8 in here and I go over here to video, for example, you can change out the video settings. Love that. If you go over here to photo, you can swipe up and change your aspect ratios. Feels a lot like the newer iPhones in here. Also portrait mode on a single lens. Pretty nice as well. This camera doesn't offer enough for people who are just really into the camera though, because it's just hard to live without the wide angle once you've used it on things like the iPhone 11. It's just not there. Also, the video performance on the front is nowhere near as good as the iPhone 11, and it doesn't have 4K video recording on the front, which is terrible compared to the newer phones. So yeah, if you're a selfie maniac, this one's not going to be for you. And also, if you really seriously rely on the camera on your iPhone for like B-roll, stuff like that, photo quality, you want to have some of the best photo quality, and you want the best photo quality on an iPhone, this one's not it. But it is the best single camera on any iPhone, I think, right now. And I also got to mention that no 3D touch on here. I haven't really cared about it. To be quite honest, I don't even notice it unless I compare it to a different phone. Then I'm like, oh yeah, 3D touch was on that other phone. But at this point, you know, it's plenty smooth with this haptic press. No real big issue here. I don't think it's going to bother you either. And the black bezels. Well, I think Apple made a good decision here because especially when you're reading and you darken the screen, you won't see them that much. On camera, these are just not pretty to look at, but you don't really notice the black bezels as much as the white bezels. I feel like I'm looking at the bezels more on a white iPhone than it's just a little more distracting to me than the black bezels. However, the black bezels are noticeable on white screens, but when you darken things like you will do at nighttime, you don't really notice them at all. So I do like the combo of the black and the red here, and just the black front face on all of the new iPhone SEs. Also, I noticed one thing I like about this phone, it doesn't rock much because there's only a single camera. You don't got like 3 cameras making this phone rock. It doesn't stick out far. So yeah, I really do like that phone doesn't really rock much. I think if you care a lot about the cameras, I still think you should go with one of the newer iPhones. They're much better for the camera. I think if you care a lot about the battery, you should go for one of the larger iPhones like 10R, as well as maybe even a Plus iPhone, or even the iPhone 11 Pro series. Those phones have much longer battery longevity than this. But if you just want a basic iPhone that does everything well enough, you don't care, you just want a good looking, good working iPhone, and you don't mind the older design really, the iPhone SE is fine. I haven't really been disappointed with it at all. And so that feeling you get when you just love something, well, that's been the speed of this phone. That's what I've been getting, that feeling like, oh man, I just love this new SE. Comes from the speed of this phone. That is the big selling point for me here. But again, so that's it. Those are my opinions on this phone so far. I'm going to give you a full review in a few days. I'll be showing camera samples. I'll be talking more about the actual specs of the phone, things like that, to give you more of an in-depth dive. But this was just like a real user update of this phone. And don't get confused, just because I do YouTube, I still purchase this phone with my own money. I still use this phone. I'm a customer of this phone just like you. Apple did not send this phone out. Anyway, thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And any more SE content you want to see, go ahead and get it down below. I have continuing coverage on this phone. I really want to get all the content that I can because I think this is going to be one of the hottest sellers of this year on the SE. So subscribe for that, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Be sure to stay safe out there. Stay well. Nick here, and peace.